Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Conspiracy Farm, where we don't start the conspiracies, we just add the water. And now, your host of the most state-of-the-art, most informed podcast on the interweb, I present to you Pat Miletich and Jeffrey Wilson. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for war?
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to yet another installment, a special installment. I'm back in Iowa of the Conspiracy Farm. Jeffrey Wilson riding shotgun with UFC Hall of Famer Pat Miletich right in front of me. Shake my hand, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing good. You're back in Iowa where you belong.
I am back. We will be bringing the on-cam business to you. Don't worry. Just not tonight.
Had a little problem.
No, and not really. Just formatting one of them damn mini SD discs. But that's all right. Let's not dwell on what is going wrong. Let's dwell on what's absolutely going right in front of us, man. He is a returning guest. Man, this guy, he's doing God's work, Pat. I mean, this guy has actually been so freaking busy. Craig Sawman, Sawyer, ladies and gentlemen, returning guest. He is a Marine veteran, a former Navy SEAL sniper, combat instructor. I mean, he also heads up Tactical Insider. They work out there with Hollywood and do all kinds of stuff like that. But more importantly, he works and heads up Vets for Child Rescue. I mean, the name, it all says it right there in the name. And again, the guy has been very, very busy, which is a very good thing. Craig Sawman Sawyer is joining us today. How are you again, sir?
Guys, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely, man. Thank you. And I truly can't say that enough. The last episode, these many months on this show, Craig, we're talking about, whose side is Trump on. Not that this really is about that, because I know your agenda is very apolitical, but a lot of what I have seen Trump been doing, Pat, as well, is these roundups. He's rounding up a lot of people. A lot of people are getting busted. Assets are being frozen.
Did you just say Trump's the one doing the rounding up?
I mean, it's on his watch, so you know what I mean. I got to give credit where credit is due, So, and you're doing a lot of this work too, man, with the organization you heads up, Vets for Child Rescue. If you can, for the folks, I mean, there's not a lot of them because we've had tens of thousands of listeners to that last episode. Brief us, if you will, on Vets for Child Rescue, how you got into it, and what the heck you've been up to, my friend.
Yeah, man. Well, I saw that after this administration was elected, that there were a radical increase. There was a radical increase in the number of arrests against pedophiles and child traffickers, and because of some of my former friends and colleagues, our federal law enforcement, they began sharing a little bit with me because they know I care about that sort of thing. Hey, Craig. They were telling me this is dark and ugly, and that it's just bigger than you would ever fear to be the truth. And it really is at the end of the day, when you peel back all the layers of politics and perversion and the financial aspects of the crime, it's really about good versus evil. Some of these people are deliberately doing the unthinkable to children for all kinds of weird reasons, and we have to fix this as a country. And so, man, that's what really caused my heart to go out to the kids. I've been all over the world. I've seen a lot of heartache and tyranny of different forms. There's been a lot of different high-end, low-intensity conflicts around the world. Seen torture and mass graves and all the different things. And I understand what people go through, and I've lived probably overseas about as much as I've lived stateside over the last 20, 30 years. So it's not really foreign to me like it is to a lot of American citizens. I've done extensive travel and been immersed in a lot of these, situations of heartache and grief. And man, I know what that looks and feels and sounds like. And I started just listening to my friends and thinking, man, I got to do something about this. And as soon as I stood up Veterans for Child Rescue to do something about it, I had an immediate family member suffer a tragedy related to this crime spree, if you will.
Really?
Yeah. I'll talk about it more later. Yeah, some people will see a bit of that in Contraland and our documentary.
I definitely want to talk about that too. Do you think this was? I mean, this is just speculation on my part. Do you think this was just kind of they got, or whoever family or whatever that got swept up? Do you think this was some kind of retaliation, possibly?
I don't think it was politically related. I don't think it was that she was targeted in that way.
Okay.
This was more of a local thug. Seemed to be kind of a random situation, very bizarre. But I think personally, if you want to look at it this way, although not connected in the sense that we typically understand it, I think it was a challenge to me personally as to whether or not I really meant business. Like, yeah, Craig, think of it internally, guys. Craig, you've taken on this mission. How bad do you really want it? And what are you really willing to go through to make a difference nationally for all the kids?
Here's the one thing
even if it hits home, are you still want some now, champ? You're going to get off the canvas and keep fighting, or are you going to go sit down and call it quits? And I realized, man, I'm in 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Just, I don't, can't stop.
No, it's, I mean, you've got the fire, that's obvious. And I think you're specially outfitted, as you mentioned, your history overseas and some of the things that you've dealt with and seeing the horrors of war and everything else. I mean, I know a lot of law enforcement, and some are involved in the pedophilia investigations, and some of them have suffered mentally, to be honest with you. And I don't know, people are, I think, outfitted differently, and obviously a combination of who you are and what you've been through has helped you out, although it's nonetheless troubling.
Yeah, man. Well, look, a lot of law enforcement, they see a lot of the worst that goes on in our country too.
Yeah.
And I don't care who you are, man. Even the most fierce warrior, if he's a complete human being, he will have a soft spot for the defenseless and the children.
Yeah.
And that's just how we good guys are wired. And I tell you what, it really is upsetting to me what I'm seeing with my own two eyes and what I'm learning through our investigations. So really what the main thrust of Veterans for Child Rescue is an alert function. Shake the populace awake, the American populace. Hey, folks, we've got a serious problem. It's big. It's right here. It's right now. And this is what's happening to our children by the hundreds of thousands. And it's kept very quiet. The mainstream news media will not talk about it. Man, we're making arrests all over the country. And when a small nonprofit organization arrests federal agents for predation upon children,
amazing.
Arrests Army active duty, Army recruiters, and elders of churches, and there are people every walk of life. There's no aspect of our society that's immune to this, because it's just human nature. You got bad people and good people as a cross section of our populace. So everybody is susceptible to it if they're not a good person. So we're getting them all, but the mainstream news media will not touch it, at least not so far, until they're made to, it seems like. And
Craig, are you guys as a group working at all with folks in Washington to rewrite, or in states to rewrite laws to make these crimes, the penalty a lot more severe?
Well, we're attempting to. Right now, it seems like the president's got on such a fast track that we've been requesting I'll say this. Some of my close friends, generals and admirals, are close friends with the president and the president's staff. And even one of the president's staff was former team leader of mine. So I'm working to get a face-to-face with the president to let him know what it is that we've got identified to bring forward nationally that would make it a huge impact on this fight. And this is a war. This is a war for the next generation of our country.
I don't know how the president hasn't met with you yet.
I know.
Well, I appreciate that, and I hope it happens. I know he's busy. I know 320 million Americans. That's a lot of folks for him to look after, and
right.
But I would like to bend his ear, and I have people that know him personally saying, Craig, he needs to talk to you, and he would be attentive, and he would be in agreement with what you've got to share. So I look forward to that day.
Yeah, his statements have been very clear on pedophilia and child sex traffickers. Man, he's kind of hinted at the death penalty for them, hasn't he?
He has. He's got no sense of humor about people tormenting and torturing the children, and I back him 100% in that regard. I think that's an appropriate and healthy response and stance, and he has followed through. He's made more arrests than anybody we've seen in administrations past.
Yeah, what is the number comparison? I thought I saw something, a graphic of it, and it crushes all the other presidents.
Well, it does seem to
in 1 year
vastly outnumber. Yeah, I don't want to quote the stats because I don't have clear stats right now. That's one of the things we're working on. In addition to everything else, of getting clear stats on what's going on with the child trafficking, because what we've discovered early on is that a lot of the federal agencies have been erroneously quoting each other's stats that were outdated, and some cases egregiously outdated. So I don't want to quote those stats until we can do our own and get something that's much more accurate, which is probably going to be disturbing to the American public.
Yeah. So let's talk about. I saw some of your work. I was following you guys online, and there were some fairly prominent people you guys just scooped up in the past few months, hasn't there been?
There have been, and you never know who's going to get caught. There's every which kind of people out there. The politicians use child trafficking as political leverage, the pedophilia thing. You used to be able to catch a politician having a one-night affair or something. It's like, you've been a naughty boy, now we're going to blackmail you.
Right.
And then that quit working because the American populace got numb to it. Culturally, it wasn't a hot button anymore. So then it had to be a homosexual encounter, and then they could leverage them over that. Now it's got to be a child because nobody really cares about homosexuality to the degree that they used to. Right. So it's no longer a political hot button. So it's just a downward spiral. It's the bottom.
The new scarlet letter, if you will.
How many? But that's the thing. What percentage of politicians at the highest levels have been compromised? Because it seems like there's a lot of them by the way they vote.
Well, it does seem as though there's a disturbing percentage of them. I don't know what that would be yet, but I do know that those that are responsible for granting security clearances for the president's staff have been blackmailed and victims of brownstoning operations. So apparently a lot of those are pedophiles because they've been dictated that they will not grant security clearances to the staff or to the cabinet members, or that they will slow roll them to the point to where it becomes irrelevant. So it's a problem, guys. Yeah. It's a problem.
Madness.
No matter how you slice it.
I mean, in your investigations, Craig, obviously there's no real what it is like, but what is this? I mean, there's weird, sick, twisted, deviant preying on children, and then there's this kind of almost institutional, ritualistic aspect to this. You know what I mean? And that goes back a ways. Like in your investigation, what is it about that? Because this is so ubiquitous, from federal to municipal to your doctors, lawyers, city hall, and there is this kind of this club, this secret society aspect of this. What is your investigation turned up about kind of the ritualistic aspect of all this?
Well, there's a wide scope, and you're right. There's every which kind of child abuse out there. A lot of it, quite frankly, is financial. It's monetary. Children, you can sell them over and over again, whereas if you sell a narcotic, you sell it once and it's consumed. Wow. So as a business model, the cartel and all the other gang members are transitioning more and more to trafficking children because it's more lucrative. It's more evil, but they don't care. And so it's growing in that regard. So there's the financial criminal aspect of it. You've also got the perversion aspect of it, where you've got sickos that just get off on having sex with children. And that's come from 3 generations after sadomasochistic pedophile scientist Alfred Kinsey's falsified studies back in the 1950s. So Alfred Kinsey went around politicking, making our laws, our educational system, and our mental health care system all friendly and soft on pedophilia. So since the 50s, there's tragically been 3 generations of pedophiles since him. And so that's caused great harm to our nation, because when they do this to the children, it shatters their little psyches. They don't understand why they're being raped instead of helped, mentored, and taught and sheltered by an adult. We should be helping them and teaching them and safeguarding them. And when an adult abuses the child that way, the child doesn't understand it. and the child doesn't yet have the mental faculties and their frontal lobe and outer cortex are not yet fully developed, and they don't have the ability to advocate for themselves against a lusty and crafty adult predator that's determined to have sex with that child. The kid just doesn't have a chance. And so the child ends up struggling with what happened and for the rest of their life, trauma therapy and all kinds of counseling and programs. And some of them find healing and a better future in life. A lot of them kill themselves, and some of them just go crazy and are never quite okay because they just can't figure out what happened, and it just wrecks their little brains. It's horrific.
Well, what about, I mean,
it's horrific.
You have, I mean, they're all victims, but I mean, you have that side of the victimization of it, and then you have, like you said, part of, for lack of a better term, some of these MK Ultra operations where psychological trauma, sexual trauma is used to split their personalities and create these kind of, I wouldn't say necessarily weaponized human beings, but somewhat weaponized human beings in these like sex slave cults, like this young lady, Allison Mack, the Smallville actress out in Hollywood, who was, hugely started out as a slave herself and then moved into being one of the masters, if you will. What about the kind of,
you can see it's a brainwashing
technique?
Yeah, I mean, she's brainwashed, obviously, to be doing what she was doing with him, and then to go out recruiting for him. Oh, her brain's smoked. Yeah,
so you've got the to recap again and continue on, you've got the financial and criminal aspect of it. You've got the sexual perversion aspect of it. Then you've got the political leverage aspect of it, which we see more in D.C. And then you've got the satanic ritual abuse aspect of it, or the cult abuse, and that's systematic. These are the sadomasochistic types who just really they get off on torturing children, and they've got all their weird rituals and occult parties and things that they do, and it just gets really, really bizarre from there, guys. It's almost right. It's almost hard to tell the American public about. Yeah, it is incomprehensible, and unless you can actually show the American public what you're talking about, they tend to just tune out and go, "Okay, that can't be real."
Exactly.
So they don't listen.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do, guys, in Contraland, we're going to show them. They're going to see the victims, the law enforcement, and we're going to show them actual stuff, so that they can see it for themselves and understand finally.
And Contraland is your new Netflix show. How did that get started? I mean, obviously it spawned from Vets for Child Rescue, but I mean, kind of how did that get put together? Who were some of the folks you collaborated with to make that happen?
Well, I realized that I had to shake the American populace awake. We can't fight as a nation what we don't know. And the average American citizen does not know that we have a massive problem with child sex trafficking. So I knew I had to alert the American populace, and I knew that a very well crafted documentary, a very unflinching and accurate one that showed a wide scope of the truth was the best weapon, if you will, or the best tool to bring the truth against that crime spree. And so I started interviewing a lot of the different producers that have been the most successful in that space of high threat documentary film production. And in these teleconferences, there was one guy who inevitably had the better solutions when the conversations ran dry, when there was a lull in the conversation and nobody had a solution. This guy had the solution. So he's ended up being the lead producer now. He's got a wide scope of background. His name hasn't been that widely known because he's made a lot of other people famous and hasn't been given the credit for it. But I'm giving him the ball on this one after interviewing all the others, realizing he's really the man for the job. And so it's a beautiful story and journey in that way, guys, because when people see this, he's going to get the credit and they're going to realize, man, this dude's, he's got the goods. And it'll be the first time that the sun's really shone upon his talent to that degree. But that's kind of the process of what happened is a process of elimination, just like any other screening process. I've been through dozens of filters in the military. You go through different training programs, and they're weeding, and they're designed to weed people out. And we did the same thing with different production companies. Just found the right fit for the unique story that we needed to tell. All the mobility and the high threat. A lot of people can film it well, and they can tell a good story. But you start talking high threat and some of the major political players and cartel and different things, and some people are like, okay, I'm out.
Just shaking in their boots.
What kind of body armor do I need? Yeah, they don't want to wear body armor and film it. They're like, oh, okay, find someone else. Yeah, so we found the good guys that can do it all.
I'm really happy this ended up on Netflix. But I remember when the first time we talked, you said you were getting a lot of pushback on trying to get it made in the first place. You talked about it in the beginning.
Oh, and that will not stop, guys. I make no mistake. By the time to come to market, there will be high-level scumbags that will try to block us some more. Early on in our crowdfunding, here's another thing, guys. The Silicon Valley is a big consumer of child sex trafficking. They get so if you think the high tech area out there in San Francisco are somehow decent people, well, maybe a lot of them are, but I tell you what, a lot of the elites out there, they prey upon children, and it's big, and it's nasty, it's ugly. So they get children delivered to them along with the drugs that they.
So do you think because of groups like yours, and I'd be probably the most afraid of yours if I was one of these scumbags. Do you think that these? I don't even know how to put it. Go ahead, Jeff.
My mouth's.
I was getting pissed off.
When does this come out? When can we expect Contralands to come out?
We're shooting for September because our timeline is event driven, not timeline driven. We've got a couple of operations still on our board that we have to knock out and film in order to put a bow tie on the story and finish up the post-production. But I want that all to be done before September.
Still need donations for that?
We still need donations, yes, sir. That's the only thing that's helped us do this. And we've done it. Some people assume because of the results that we've gotten that we're a giant federally funded entity, and that's not the case at all. We're a small nonprofit org with $5, $10, $100 donations in a lot of cases. We had Alex Jones donate $100,000. That's been far and away the biggest thing we've ever gotten. And that was the bulk of the catalyst of what let us get started, man. We started arresting predators and taking them off the streets. And I tell you what, man, if you realize the statistics that each child predator that's a pedophile harms 70 children each. You do the math, man. You take each predator off the street.
Each one? Whoa. Each one violates 70 kids.
That's average. Now, some of them it's hundreds because they put themselves in positions to have access to children. So they want to be priests, they want to be coaches, they want to be Boy Scout leaders.
It's amazing that they plan out their life around it.
Well, they're
insane.
You hit the nail right on the head, Pat. It's insane. An insane mind has a drive for what they want that it's not sane. So
you wanted to get through buds and become a Navy SEAL. These guys, it's crazy that they even can go that bent.
What we've seen is those who are driven for they're wired to prey upon the boys. They are much more crude, much more aggressive, and much more just
vile.
Yeah, crude and aggressive really says it. They'll come in for the boys. If they're 5 or 10 minutes away, they want to come right now. There's no prep. There's no courting. There's no anything. There's just they just want to come right now and just rape that boy. And they just lose their minds, man. They throw all of their security out the window. They throw all rational thought out the window. It's really bizarre how driven they are. So that's a lot of these people. That's all they can think about. They just want to attack, and satisfy their own selfish and morbid lust for that sick.
Well, something you just said, Craig, which is really, really disturbing, is that, you know, a lot of these guys and gals, you know, but they place themselves in situations where they're working with children. You know, there are other, not your organization, obviously, but other organizations that are supposed to be specializing in child rescue. And they wind, like this guy, I forget, last week, some old guy got pinched with two young boys at his house, but he's like the top executive of,
like a world child rescue.
A global. But I mean, this kind of goes to what you said, but it's like, it's just so, it's mind-boggling. And it's, I don't know.
Let me say this. I'm going to say this, and this should not be controversial, but in this day and age where you've got to sugarcoat everything and not be direct.
We don't sugarcoat anything, so.
Yeah. Well, look, anybody that's pretending to be part of the solution, whether it be law enforcement, somebody that's a religious leader, or somebody with a nonprofit organization, I believe that the penalty should be far stiffer against those that are doing the opposite of what they pretend to be.
That's a great point.
I really do. Don't you? If you're a priest,
100%. 100%.
Yeah, don't you be a fake priest. And if you're going to be a nonprofit organization, don't you be a fake. Right, and if you're going to be a cop, don't you be a fake and dirty cop and actually helping the crooks. Don't freaking do it, man. That's what's ruining everybody's faith and in everybody in this country. And that's what's wrong, man. We've got to hold standards. I think God holds those people. I think he's going to deal with them much more harshly. Those that you know, like a pedophile priest than he would normal pedophile even.
Well, when you think about it as an organization, at least 8,000 priests were harbored, sexual pedophile priests were harbored and protected by the Catholic Church.
Yeah, it's just so counterproductive and so harmful. Then what does that do to the real priests, to the sincere priests whose hearts are good, who are just helping people, and they're sincere and righteous men? Nobody believes them. Nobody will want to listen to them because, oh, well, there's another one or there's a whole bunch of others that are pedophiles, so you must be too. That's the damage that's done. So damn them for what they're doing.
Yeah, and I always think under the layers, and not to get too far into this, but I'm thinking that, you know, a priest, you know, was it the church being infiltrated by bad people deliberately, or was it just pedophiles seeking a position to go after kids? You know what I mean? That's the kind of stuff that I think about. Yeah,
I kind of wonder the same, I guess, because I don't know. I'm not a Catholic Church insider. I could just say from my perspective in our investigations, it seems like we've seen a clear pattern that the pedophiles find ways to get access to the boys and girls. And I would expect, if I had to lay money on it earlier on without knowing more about the inside of the Catholic Church, I would expect that it's the predators found their way into those positions so that they could get access to the kids.
Right. So, I mean, at what point do we start naming the penalties for these crimes?
Man, I think that's up to the president. He's the commander-in-chief. I think he needs to set his commander's intent directly to the head of the DOJ, to the attorney general, and say, hey, look, here is my commander's intent. Here is what I believe. Here's my culture. I mean for this to be pushed down. And people have elected me, and they believe in me in that capacity. And here's my stance on child trafficking and pedophilia. Make it happen. Yeah. And I think that's true leadership, and that's where it should come from. And I hope to see that continue to grow.
Well, he's made his point very clear a couple times, hasn't he, in speeches where he's really gone after him and said, "We're coming after you guys."
Yeah, and he's said as much to the DOJ, if my understanding is accurate. So that's nothing but good.
Well, and the thousands of arrests really kind of tease that out too. I mean, we are seeing some heads roll. But I mean, something you had kind of mentioned before, really getting people to, I guess for a lack of a better term, wake up as to how huge this is. And there really needs to be a let justice be done, though the heavens fall. Name these names, name these institutions, these hallowed institutions that many of us have faith in. that they have this going on. I think as long as they're picking up low-hanging fruit, for lack of a better term, and the big wigs are still walking, I think people will still continue to just like, oh, maybe it's just some sick people at the low level, but we need to start hearing, fuck them. We need to start hearing we need to start seeing John Podesta have a perp walk. Huma Abedin, all of these people, Anthony Weiner, he's already locked up, but we need to start seeing some big cats in heavy positions take a walk.
100%. With all the social media monitoring and promotions that I do, I see people out there, man. People are jaundiced, they're jaded, they're cynical, they're burnt out, their hope has been exhausted, and they're pissed off, guys. Now they're like, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. But so far, as long as they see Hillary Clinton parading around free as a bird after everything that she's done, I mean, staggering, incalculable harm to our nation, yet she still walks free.
Exactly.
Look at Governor Jerry Brown in California. I mean, that guy, he's been like an economic terrorist to that state. He has crippled the state of California.
It's amazing how obvious it is that they want that. They want the collapse.
Yeah. Well, they do. When you trace the agenda further up, and the average American citizen hasn't really done it. I think there's an awakening happening. A lot more people are starting to tune in and figure it out and listen and see it now that it's become so flagrant, so obvious. I mean, we can feel the impact now of the last 8 years and go, man, that really hurt. What was that all about? And I think people are starting to sharpen up. So, no, I agree with you, Jeff, 100%. The big names need to be brought to justice. And then the biggest, boldest way, I believe, one of our let me protect his identity. A close friend of mine is a major high-ranking Navy admiral, and he was part of the stand-up operation for the Gitmo facility. And I called him and I said, "Look, I understand that there are thousands and thousands of sealed indictments. I read President Trump's 21 December executive order saying we could seize the assets of these anti-American subversives and those guilty of egregious crimes against humanity, human traffickers. That's very specific. To me, that means Clinton Foundation and Soros and all of those types."
Yeah. I've been wondering when Soros' money's going to be. I mean, is that why Soros gave all that money away?
It may be. Who knows? I'm learning more about that here in the next couple of weeks. So I don't want to say too much about it yet.
That's what I was thinking. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
I want to hear more about Gitmo.
Yeah, Gitmo has been experiencing a significant expansion, a massive expansion, and a ramp up in activity, a number of flights down there and so forth. And I asked my admiral friend, I said, is Gitmo just for international terrorists? Because that is, as a counter-terrorist operator, that's been my understanding of what the Gitmo facility was for. And he said, "Oh no, Craig, that's not all that it's for. It is also absolutely for those American citizens and politicians who are guilty of high treason against America."
Are you
That is
serious?
Absolutely within the Gitmo facility's charter to process and house them. And
man.
Okay, now I'm starting to get excited because I see all the little ducks lining up in a row. And I've been very impatient with Jeff Sessions and saying, hey, when are you going to pull the trigger? We see the Podestas, we see, all these obvious criminals still at large. What's the deal? And people in high places are telling me, hey, Craig, just have patience, trust the plan. What's basically, guys, my understanding is that they're stacking the deck, and they are building their cases so that it won't be some, multi-billionaire attorney getting these scumbags off in a court of law, with the courtroom antics. Oh, the glove doesn't fit, or some kind of it's here, so not guilty. So you misspelled something, so they go free.
Right.
No, they're gonna slam them with solid cases. The hammer's going to fall once, and it's going to be absolute, and they will be tried for sedition, treason, or whatever else they're guilty for. They'll be processed by Gitmo down in Gitmo with a military tribunal and executed for their crimes of treason or housed there indefinitely.
That's so interesting because we talk about this on the show, and lately, and I mean, you see it, there's so much misinfo about everything going on in the world, from geopolitics to this conversation. And I think maybe Pat, you sent it to me, or I sent it to you. There was like these flight manifests from Virginia to Gitmo to Virginia to Maryland, all these different, and I don't know if that was real or not, but that is so freaking awesome to get a confirmation from you, Greg Sawman Sawyer, that this is actually happening. Man, I mean, I never want to get my hopes up too high, but that definitely makes me feel really, really good. Now I'm going. What
do you normally call this?
What?
When you get all excited?
Getting a chubby?
No, when you read Q stuff, it is.
Hope porn.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't want this to be hope porn. I know you know what you're talking about. Now I'm going to counteract that hope and joy statement with not dwelling into how dark this is. But Pat hit me up with this I think a couple weeks ago. When you get into war, you've seen war, and it's a very ugly thing, but there's a huge part of war, as we're seeing in Syria, that's affecting children, from abductions to, I think, Pat, what was it, 18 to 20,000?
18,000 children have had their organs harvested.
In the last 3 or 4 years, I think it was, or maybe 5 tops. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's another aspect of what goes on with the trafficking globally, is the organ harvesting. So we're at the end of a kid's usefulness. They may execute the kid or torture the child to death in some sort of morbid ritual, and then they will take the organs and rush them off to a high-paying client who needs the organ for a transplant surgery. So,
and that's just Syria. Almost 20,000 in just Syria in just 3 years. I mean, it's really hard to get your mind around all this, man.
When you think about the number of kids that go missing in the United States each year, I heard something 700,000 or 800,000. Is that correct?
Close to 1 million.
Oh yes, yeah. It's way up there, and there are places that even if they're not pulled directly into one of these organized crime trafficking rings, a lot of them end up in the same locations with massive homeless communities, and even there we're finding out that the children are drugged, raped, and tortured to death in videos, and then they sell the videos, and they make a lot of money now on those sick videos. So we'll show all that in Contraland too. But I agree with you guys. You can't look at what's going on and not just ask yourself, what on earth has humanity slumped into? I mean, how far down can humans stoop? I mean, at what point do people look around and go, what am I doing? I mean, What on earth am I doing?
Well, and what set of circumstances creates a human being like that? I mean, there's talk about serious, moral vacancy, if you will. I mean, it's just beyond me. And I don't know, man. I've seen videos, and it's just when you start, and I don't mean to dwell on the darkness of it, but when you hear these kids' screams and 20,000 organ, it's so dark. And like you said in our last interview, it is good versus evil. This is beyond right, left. This is beyond any of that. And like you just said, and when I heard the bombing in Syria started again, I was like, as most people, really, really freaking upset about it. Because I just know about all of this crap that goes into this, and it's like, as human beings, man, what happened to us? What the hell happened to us?
Think of what year was it when Paul Harvey gave that speech, "If I Were the Devil"?
Oh yeah, I heard that.
In the 70s?
The 60s.
So he knew about all of that,
right?
Back then.
We live
Yeah, guys. This is something that kind of, I don't want to say it gives me chills, but I grew up hearing about this kind of thing, about more specifically the world wars that would increase, the increasing persecution against Christianity, that you would not be able to be an open and proud Christian, or proud patriot in later days. and things like that. I grew up hearing that in my house because my parents had international travelers for friends, high-ranking intelligence community officials, missionaries, race car drivers, preachers, you name it, all kinds of people, diplomats, come through the house, stay with my dad, guest speak at his church and different things. And they would talk about all these things that they'd been in meetings and seen things developing around the world. And a lot of these highly educated people, and some of them in positions privy to know about it, and in government official positions. And so I grew up hearing about this. So none of this is a surprise to me. It's still a disappointment to see it playing out and coming to pass. But man, it's disturbing to know that this was kind of pre-written, that this was the way that humanity has been geared to go. And I think there's a smaller group of global elites at the top that are pulling the strings. They want this. It benefits them to consolidate power and hook themselves up. That way they get what they want. And but that's just disappointing too, to see, like, wow. So the most elite humans with the most wealth and power turn to evil. I mean, that's essentially what I'm seeing. I mean, somebody correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, and the overly ambitious human beings who are willing to sell their soul and do these kind of things just to get into a position of power, like it's unfathomable to me. I mean, people are like, yeah, it's okay. You got me blackmailed. I'm still going to be a congressman, senator, whatever it is. Like, they can rationalize to themselves their pursuit of power and rationalize this evil. I mean, I don't even say illegal anymore. This is straight pit sucking evil.
Yeah, well, it's the weakest among us that will abuse the defenseless.
Absolutely.
It really is. After being in conflicts all over the world, 55 countries, and standing in mass graves and seeing all kinds of things, bodies blown up and strewn everywhere, and seeing what humanity can stoop to, man, I I look around and I have seen heroism, true heroism, and it is the strongest humans, and it can be in a little girl, and that heroism can be in a little old lady. The carcass that we occupy is not the main factor. Right. It comes from within. It truly does come from within.
Yeah.
Heroism comes from the inside, and I've seen it, and that is strength of character. Right. That is strength of character. It's the weaklings, genuinely. And I'm not trying to change what is. I'm just making an observation. It's those who are weak on the inside that turn and abuse the helpless and defenseless. There's something wrong with them. There's something less than about those people who turn and harm the defenseless. It's a sick mind, and it's a weak character who does that. And that's why in the federal law enforcement community, I've seen it's the weakest that were clawing for positions of authority, and they were the ones that lying, cheating, and stealing, and did not care.
Right,
lives they ruined, and so that's been my increasing observation. With that's been a practical observation through experience. So I think as long as more American public realize, don't be intimidated and don't be scared of people who abuse their authority. Be disgusted with them and be pissed off and determined to take them out of office. And
don't be so brainwashed to think, no, the XYZ couldn't do that. She or he couldn't do that. He's on the seat of whatever committee, and I've shook his hand, and he's a normal. This weird thing we tell ourselves that that makes us think these people aren't potentially capable of just.
Well, that's the thing: is who the hell is it? Is it you? Is it you know what I'm saying?
What?
These people that are doing this are coming from all walks of life.
Right.
I mean, an attorney that I know I taught.
It's all walks, guys.
Yeah.
And not to cut you off, Pat, but we've gotten so wired to put the priority on what people say and ignore what they do, and that's almost like a deliberate effort by the mainstream news media, if you will. They tend to harp on what people say and ignore what they do. Man, we all, as rational, common sense American adults, recognize that actions speak louder than words. Actions matter. And if you just turn off the volume in life and you watch what people actually do. That's how you spot the scumbags, Pat. That's
Yeah.
and you know that it's. But just to say it for everybody, people can say whatever they want. Smile at them, shake their hand. The worst scumbags out there, I guarantee. If you met Adolf Hitler, he could, in the right setting, he could smile at you and be charming and shake your hand, and you could meet him and walk away and go, well, he was a nice guy. I met him.
Right.
He didn't throw me in an oven.
Ted Bundy, is a pretty.
Ted Bundy was a ladies' man.
It's going to happen. So we got to realize the worst scum out there can smile and be charming. A lot of people around Bill Clinton that I know. I never hung out around Bill, but I know people that have. They're like, Craig, he is funny. He's charming. And if you didn't know what all else he was into, you'd love him. I mean, to hang out with him, he's like, he's like, hey, if you're just going to be around him for a little while, I mean, he's just, chatty and, witty. And it's like, wow, that's a really cool, nice guy. Until you take a few paces back and look at his life and look at what he's actually done. You're like, oh, you scumbag.
And that goes really, when I watch these, it goes to the depths of their sociopathy, if that's a word, because you're just like, wow, like Hillary, like, I don't know, not to get it, I mean, come on, Hillary's just like, those, like, what are they, the algae eaters on a fish tank, the plecostomus that just feed off whatever, like, she's just just a bottom feeding, I don't know.
Well, listen, let me throw a curveball at you, a positive one. So we're talking about the dregs of society, but now check it out. Here's a positive story. We were trying to effect the rescue of a child sex trafficking victim earlier last year. And there was another organization that said that they knew where this young lady was, and they could get her out to safety and back into her mom's arms and into therapy and a better life. And we went to go fund their operation because they said they couldn't fund it. We brought our entire film crew. We went to their state. We ended up running, instead of knowing exactly where she was like they told us, they gave us the runaround. We spent 3 days and nights running surveillance operations looking for her. And I'm talking about in the worst gang-controlled crack neighborhoods and motels and things like that, where we almost got into some considerable trouble numerous times. And so anyway, that org did not get her, and that org left and went completely back out of town and left us there scratching our heads going, what just happened here? And I tell you what, guys, I looked into the mother's eyes. I interviewed her afterwards, and she didn't know what to say. She thought she was going to get her daughter back.
Wow.
And it broke my heart, man. I was looking at the missing poster of this young lady, and I was like, this is not okay with me on any level. And so I stayed in touch with the mother, and I just would call her and just say, are you okay? Have you heard anything? And I followed up with all the police departments of those cities that we had worked in and the towns that we'd worked in, said, hey, look, have you heard anything? Do you know about this young lady? And they're like, who are you talking about? And I would give them all the details, the grid coordinates, the address of the place that we thought she was, and the different motels and the organization that said that they were going to get her. And they're like, we never heard of that organization or the guy that runs it.
Wow.
Talk about frauds, guys. There's a lot of harm.
Wow.
And so I was like, you got to be kidding me. You never heard of this guy? Here's his name. Here's his organization. And they're like, no, we run the child sex trafficking division. We've never heard of it. And I'm like, okay, well, look, here's my organization. Here's me. Please keep my contact information. And so I would stay in touch with them, stay in touch with the mother. And anyway, long story short, guys, I became friends with the mother, and she called me. And it was on Easter Sunday morning, guys. She said, she's alive. She's alive, and I just talked to her by the phone. Do you want to talk to her? And I said, man, do I ever.
Oh,
And so I called her, and I said, sweetie, here's my name. You don't know me, but I run an organization of big bad pipe hitters who are your big brothers, and we've been looking for you, and you don't even know.
wow.
And where are you? And what's your situation? Are you okay? She's like, oh, I'm on the run, and here's my location. I said, okay, let me have you stashed there. I got several people I can deploy there. If not, I'm going to come. She was in a couple states away. So one of my colleagues said, Craig, I've got a jet aircraft that needs a new. I said, when can you get there? He said, I got to need a new nose gear, an inspection, and a refuel. I can't get. She was in Texas at the time.
Okay.
He goes, I can't get there till midnight tonight, but I'll be there first I can. I said, oh, okay. I think I can beat that, even if I just jumped on a plane here. And I thought, okay, which ones of our team members may be closest? Who can I put on her, get her safe? I called one of my senior team members. He's a guy who's, I'll put it to you this way. He's the real guy that they modeled the character Jack Ryan after in the Tom Clancy novels.
Oh, wow.
Movies. He's the real guy. And his actual name is Jack. And I called him. I said, Jack, I've got her. Here's where she is. Can you safeguard her until I can get there? And he said, Craig, I'm not 30 minutes from that bus station.
Wow.
And he and his wife has been an agent too, multiple agencies. She is sharp too. She's fantastic. He goes, we're gonna go get her. They got her, fed her. One of her traffickers actually went there looking for her, couldn't find her because they had removed her, got her fed. She hadn't eaten in 3 days. Long story short, we got her transported back, and she ended up embracing her mother in her arms in my own home. It just happened that was the place that I could get them together at the soonest possible juncture. And I got to see her hug her mother. And so, guys, I don't care what you've been through, man. That will punch you right in the gut.
Yeah.
You will feel happy.
Right.
And the sun comes out just a little brider on a day like that. Let me tell you.
Absolutely. Jeez, tell me about it.
That young lady is on a brighter, more beautiful life path. She's got a lot of support around her right now, and she's on her way. So,
that's great.
There's a bright side to this, guys, and that's what we're doing here.
Yeah.
So it's an ugly epidemic.
So let me ask you this:
there's a bright side for those who dare.
Certainly is. And you're doing great things. And a lot of people have messaged me, and I can't imagine the number of messages you get. Not from the people who want to donate, which is obviously that's going to help you considerably, but I've had former law enforcement, veterans, other people contact me and go, hey, how do we get involved with that? So what would you say to those people? Because I think they want to physically help.
Yeah, well, absolutely, man, and I don't blame them, and I applaud that, and I'm grateful that they want to help. We're running our sting operations jointly with law enforcement, federal and local, and we've got a lot involved. We've got sheriffs, chiefs of police, district attorneys in the house with us usually when we're making these arrests. SWAT team, K9 unit, and even surveillance units, along with our Viper team, and even highway patrol in some cases, depending on the location. So we've been having fantastic relationships with law enforcement. But for those that are in law enforcement that want to get involved further, I would say identify chiefs of police, sheriffs, and DAs, district attorneys, who want to play ball, who want to work with us and our proven template of operations, and we can link up and contact and coordinate and go to their state or their city and run these operations and take a lot of their predators off the streets and safeguard things for their own kids there. So that's one of the things that they can do immediately. Another thing, we've got a new system called it's a FAST program. And it's a way that if they go to vetsforchildrescue.org, the new FAST program is a system that allows people to register, let us know what it is that they offer, what kind of assets they have access to, or what they would like to do. Some people want to research, some people have all different kinds of capabilities. So that FAST program kind of allows them to sort themselves in different categories for that. So I would say go to the website, vetsforchildrescue.org, and register there, and that's another way that they can help. And just additionally, they can hound their elected officials for stronger enforcement.
Absolutely.
We've got laws on the books that would prevent this if only it were enforced to the fullest. But our law enforcement are, in a lot of cases, overtasked, other cases undermanned, sometimes both. Sometimes leadership's not inclined to go after child trafficking. Look, guys, we talk to district attorneys and chiefs of police sometimes that say, yeah, Craig, we know we've got a serious problem of child trafficking in our city, but we don't want our citizens to know, so we're not going to run operations.
That's insane. That's ridiculous.
Wow.
Yeah, we've got to change that, guys. So what I'm doing about it is we're really going to celebrate those who do have the courage and the ethical mettle, if you will, to stand up and face this and clean up their cities and their towns, because we have worked with some men that have inspired me and motivated me to no end. I guarantee you the sheriffs and chiefs of police we've worked with and the DAs and the prosecutors have been some of the best. And when people see them, I hope they will celebrate them and elect them to higher office and recognize those people's contributions. And when other sheriffs, chiefs of police, and DAs see these men standing up as leadership, as strong leaders, I think they'll get inspired and motivated and realize, man, why don't I do what he or she did? And if they can kick that much butt, why can't I? If they can safeguard their citizens and serve their citizens in good faith, well then why could I look myself in the mirror doing any less?
And
so maybe it's leadership by example.
There's a lot of positions. I mean, you need IT people, you need surveillance people, you need intel people, you need the heavies.
Yeah, man, there are. Yeah, all of those things matter. They're all valuable. And so that FAST program allows them to register and sort themselves accordingly.
Okay, great.
Man, it's so good to know that there are some good guys out there, and there definitely are some victories to be had. And, man, you are definitely stacking them up, man. I tell you what, Craig, I love you, brother, and you are absolutely doing God's work, man. And vetsforchildrescue.org, ladies and gentlemen. What's the cartel land?
Contraland.
Contraland. Yeah. I'm sorry. Okay. Yep. Look for that come September. And I mean, Craig, you are absolutely welcome back here anytime, my friend. I have a smile on my face right now, and I'm actually feeling good from the Gitmo story to that victory lap you guys took with that young lady in Texas, dude. Very, very cool. Very cool, man. Cool work, my friend.
And I think we need to mention Contraland every week when we do the show until it airs.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Just like you're our sponsor or something.
Well, thank you, guys. Thank you, man. It feels good to be part of something, and we can all really be heroes in standing up as a nation and pitching in a little bit for our kids. I appreciate the kind words that people bestow upon me, but I'm just a regular guy. I'm one guy who just got heartbroken and pissed off and decided to do what I could, and I can't do it by myself. It's going to take all of us. Yeah. And people are standing up. You guys are helping. People like you spreading the word. God bless you for it, man. That's an act of strength and honor, and I appreciate you for it. And together we are what we can't be alone. So let's all be a little bit more heroes. Because again, it comes from the inside, man. We all have it within us. So let's press that trigger.
It's definitely a group effort, man. Craig Sawman Sawyer, wow, just a fantastic human being. Vetsforchildrescue.org. Craig, God bless you, brother, and peace and so much love. Continued success. Any final statements from you, my friend?
No, I'm just keep keeping on. It's amazing. It's amazing. You guys are kicking ass, and I wish I could be out there with you. I got 3 young girls, so I'll stay here and protect them, and you guys go out and smash some stuff.
All right, man. Will do.
All
Grateful
right.
to be a part of it. Take care.
Absolutely. Craig Sawman Sawyer, vetsforchildrescue.org. Peace and love, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned. There will always be more.